The Butcher of Prague, Part 1 of 2. The Man They Called the Blonde Beast. Runtime, about 10 minutes. Cold open, black screen. Sound of a car engine idling on a quiet street. Prague, May 1942. A curve in the road, a tram slowing down, a briefcase resting on a passenger's knees. In less than 60 seconds, one of the most powerful men in the Nazi regime will be mortally wounded. Not by an army, not by a bomb dropped from the sky, but by two exiled soldiers who volunteered for a mission they were told they would not survive. This is the story of Reinhard Heydrich, the man Hitler called the man with the iron heart, and the plot that ended him. The Butcher of Prague. Chapter 1, The Architect. To understand why a small resistance network on the other side of occupied Europe decided Reinhard Heydrich had to die, you first have to understand what he had built. Born in Halle, Germany in 1904, Heydrich was the son of a composer and opera singer, a household that prized discipline, music, and appearances. He was an awkward, bullied child who grew into a cold, exacting young man. He trained as a naval cadet, was dismissed from the Navy in 1931 over a conduct scandal, and might have faded into obscurity. Instead, he was introduced to Heinrich Himmler. Within an hour of their meeting, Himmler hired him to build an intelligence service for the SS. It would become the SD, the Sicherheitsdienst, the security and espionage arm of the Nazi Party. Heydrich didn't just run it, he built the machinery of Nazi terror almost from scratch. By the late 1930s, he controlled the Gestapo, the Kripo, and the SD, unified under one roof, the Reich Main Security Office. He organized the fabricated border incident that gave Hitler his pretext to invade Poland. He oversaw the Einsatzgruppen, the mobile killing units that murdered hundreds of thousands across Eastern Europe. And in January 1942, at a lakeside villa in Wannsee, it was Heydrich who chaired the meeting that coordinated the logistics of what the Nazis called the final solution, the industrialized murder of Europe's Jews. Even among the senior leadership of the Third Reich, Heydrich was regarded as uniquely dangerous. Hitler is said to have called him the man with the iron heart. Himmler feared him as a rival. He was tall, blonde, physically imposing, a fencer, a violinist, a fighter pilot who flew combat missions for sport, and almost universally described by those who knew him as ruthless without a flicker of hesitation. Chapter 2, The Protectorate. Narrator VO. In September 1941, Hitler sent Heydrich to Prague with a new title, Deputy Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia, effective ruler of the occupied Czech lands. His predecessor had been considered too soft. Heydrich was not. Within days of arriving, he declared martial law. He had the Czech Prime Minister arrested. He ordered mass arrests of resistance figures, intellectuals, and anyone suspected of disloyalty. Death sentences were handed out by summary courts, sometimes within hours of arrest. In his first weeks alone, hundreds were executed. But Heydrich was not simply a blunt instrument. He was strategic. He raised food rations for Czech industrial workers to keep war production humming. He offered social benefits to loyal workers. He wanted the Czech lands fully Germanized within a generation. Some Czechs Germanized through assimilation, others deported, and those deemed racially or politically unfit, eliminated. It was a carrot and dagger approach, and it worked well enough that the underground resistance networks inside Czechoslovakia were devastated. Radio contact with the exiled Czechoslovak government in London went silent for months. Heydrich, in effect, was winning. It was this, the near total collapse of organized resistance, that convinced the Czechoslovak government-in-exile, led by President Edvard Beneš in London, that something dramatic had to happen, not just for the war effort, for the nation's political survival. Beneš worried that if Czechoslovakia contributed nothing visible to its own liberation, the Allied powers might not restore its pre-war borders after the war. He needed an act, something loud enough that the world would remember Czechs had fought back. Chapter 3, The Plan. Narrator. The plan took shape inside the Czechoslovak Military Intelligence Service, operating in exile in Britain under the code name Operation Anthropoid. Two men were selected for the mission, Jozef Gabčík, a Slovak, and Jan Kubiš, a Czech, both soldiers who had escaped occupied Czechoslovakia to fight abroad, both trained by the British Special Operations Executive in sabotage, unarmed combat, and clandestine warfare. They trained for months, and in December 1941, they were parachuted into the Protectorate under cover of darkness, landing off-target near Nevězdy, east of Prague. Their orders, given directly by Czechoslovak military intelligence with British logistical support, were unambiguous: assassinate Reinhard Heydrich. It was an extraordinarily dangerous assignment, and everyone involved understood the mission carried almost no realistic chance of survival for the two men who would carry it out. Heydrich did not skulk in fear. He was famously, almost arrogantly confident, riding in an open-top Mercedes convertible through Prague, with only a driver and no armed escort, believing his brutal grip on the population made him untouchable. That confidence would be exploited. Over the following months, Gabčík and Kubiš linked up with the underground resistance network still operating inside Czechoslovakia, moving between safe houses in Prague, sheltered by families who understood that hiding them meant a death sentence if they were discovered. They studied Heydrich's routine. Each morning he was driven from his country residence at Panenské Brežiny into Prague Castle, always along roughly the same route, always at roughly the same time, always in that same open car. They settled on a spot, a hairpin turn in the Prague suburb of Libeň, where Heydrich's driver would be forced to slow the vehicle almost to a stop to navigate the bend. It was the one moment in his daily routine where Heydrich would be a stationary, exposed target. The date was set for May 27, 1942. Music swells, tense low strings, narrator VO, two men, one tram stop, one curve in the road, and a target who believed with the arrogance of absolute power that no one in Prague would dare